try this, even from organizations I work with that do like community gardens, right?
Yes,
And the
yes, that's right.
concept of how that would how that would apply, right? And so same kind of concept if you're tapping into the community garden or the food bank and then teaching these families how to grow their own food and have a
Mm.
shared supply element of it, I think it's admirable. So that's my sense of it, Rocky, to answer your
Yeah,
question.
we would love to work with community garden. We would work with the community, all kind of whatever organizations get turned on by this concept of local food security. And what if we bring together the peers? And I've been doing it for the last 5, 6 years, bringing peers together. And it occurred to me last year that there's a lot of talent, a lot of energy, a lot of potential there to be able to collaborate together or have collaborative ventures or co-ventures as we call it. And so last year we stepped into cybersecurity space with an academy
Yeah.
training, online training for cybersecurity and looking at some vertical markets with security.world to be able to look at different areas that are effective, specifically the medical industry. And starting to work with other peers that are focusing in particular areas, consulting aids with government grants and commercial incentives. If you qualify, you can get a lot of money from that. Entrepreneurs University for small, medium sized, and large company training. We're focusing with VenOps with compliance. Their target market is a medical area. They've got about 1,000 rural hospitals as clients. Others that are AI based, Echo.ai, Savvy.ai, that is more uh, employee based. Continuum Foundation is focused on virtual solutions with NFTs and blockchain, which is huge, and of course, cryptocurrency. And Southeast Asia with Rural World, and also with a nonprofit philanthropic area, Blackbird Global Foundation. They made a lot of inroads, starting with cybersecurity, but inroads into healthcare and focusing in the African market. And they've raised quite a bit of money to do that. Recycling, as well as some other initiatives. The key is that so we can bring together leaders and do a mastermind on a weekly basis to be able to focus on being able to grow your business or your focus that you have. You mentioned it's technology based and also
Yeah.
connecting peers. So, what's your big idea for 2025 then, the opportunity and the challenge that you're facing with that?
Yeah, we're really scaling the venture at the moment. So we've spent, 5 years commercializing this business, and we're really hitting our stride in terms of bringing the product to market. The simple way to describe it is that we've built a platform that is similar interface to Airbnb or Match.com. So one of the founders of Match.com is also one of my partners. So essentially, rather than searching for a romantic partner or a date or searching for a property or a vacation experience, you go onto the app and you select particular experiences or challenges that you might have in your life that could be life or career related. And then based on that, you can sub-select attributes of the person that you might want to speak with about someone who's been through that. So, for example, right now we're supporting families that have been displaced by the LA fires, for instance, and we're
Yeah. Oh,
connecting with
wow.
by people who have been through that experience, rebuilding their lives after Katrina, for instance. That's one example of Hurricane Katrina, one example of something we're doing right now. But it's not unique to just crisis or things of that nature. It could be, hey, I've become a new parent and I want to speak with someone else who's an executive, who's a new parent, who's been a new parent, who understands the process of how do you build a business and a career while welcoming a new baby into the world. Or it could be that, hey, I've got a loved one who now has dementia and I'm responsible for being their caregiver and the demands of my career are overwhelming and I want to talk with another caregiver who's been along this path. And so we have built a community where we can source people who are talented, well-educated, capable individuals who are motivated primarily by the desire to be helpful and of service. But we've aligned financial and incentive models around it as well, in the form of education and community and give back. And so that's the general design of what we've built with Life Guides. And then to our question or comment, we sell this to companies, right? And so the Society for Human Resource Management, or SHRM, is a big client partner of ours. They're bringing us out to a number of their clients. We also work with a number of health insurers and voluntary insurers who are bringing our platform to their members as well, but being bundled into different health and wellness plans. And so for us, it's really just about how do we bring on more volume to the platform, more families to support, more corporate partners who are offering this to their employees. And yeah, that's just a quick level. I mean, We've been fortunate to be able to serve it up at a high level, but the growth play of where we are now is kind of taking it to the next level. So we have a large vision and a mission. Ultimately, we will scale this globally. Right now, we're just supporting North America, but we've put down a lot of the foundation to be able to scale this internationally as well.
And my impression is that you're targeting businesses to be able to assist you with that. Can you say more about who your ideal client is at this point, Derek?
Yeah, at the moment, I'll put it into two categories. If we're selling it direct to employer, where they're buying this as a subscription for their employees, we would typically go through the HR, Human Resources Department, or some constellation of HR buyers who are offering benefits or total rewards, or it could be through the CFO and operations team as well, because of the different programs that we have through different tax incentive programs and wellness programs. That's one side. The other side is the partners that have distribution networks. So think commercial payers like United and Optum and Cigna and Evernorth and Humana and things like that. Think government programs like TRICARE through the VA and DoD. Think associations, like I said, SHRM or the Realtors Association or other groups that have large distribution network, or voluntary insurance carriers like Allstate and Aflac and programs like that, where they can essentially through their network turn on the program and offer it to hundreds of thousands of lives potentially through their channels and use that as a way to drive member engagement, adoption, retention, or even monetize the program if they are so inclined. So those are a couple of different. So those are the two core channels: is direct to employer, HR and executive leadership, and then channel partnerships through the payer arena, and that could include a whole array of different decision makers in that area. So
Yeah, that makes sense. So, top of mind, Derek, is it's admirable that you're doing. I forgot how many years you've been doing it, but it seems like a long time.
yeah,
And you're impressed. It's impressive with the partnership with Sherm and also the people that you brought in from Match.com. So, what is your biggest challenge for just this year, the next 12 months, 11 months now?
yeah. I mean, we're in the process of doing a fundraise, a capital raise. We've not done institutional raise at this point. We've raised through high net worth and angels up to this point, but we're at the breakout scaling moment, and so we are doing a fundraise. And then obviously that's to invest in our customer support and engagement primarily, as well as for sales efforts and managing those channel partnerships because they are strategic, high level executive partnerships. We're working with the C-suite typically at these channel partners, and so there's a certain profile of executive that we're recruiting at the moment. So, yeah, it's related to scaling the business is the fundamental challenge, and there's a whole array of sub challenges in that, Rocky.
So, what is the amount that you're looking for? And I'll put in the chat box our investor session that we have upcoming
Yeah,
February 20th. Yeah.
we're targeting an $8 to $10 million raise at the moment, and over the course of the company, we've raised about 16 million through the course of the business.
And what is that going to be dedicated to? What are you going to do with the money?
Primarily, it's to invest in customer support at the corporate level, as well as in the partnership relationship managers on the sales and business development side. In the community of guides, the peer mentors, we have hundreds and 1,000 or so on the waiting list. So we're quite mature in terms of the ability to scale and serve the membership base, but the level of corporate support to grow the business and infrastructure to provide that scale, that's where the investment will be going
The
primarily.
sort of direction. And Richard, you're involved in certainly with 40 years experience in nonprofit environment with out of Montreal with some of the things that you're doing. Richard, any questions for Derek at this point?
I have a nonprofit, ambition, kind of an arm, a nonprofit arm of what is essentially, more of a for-profit community enterprise network. And maybe there is a connection here because I did hear about, I guess this is a wellness program. Am I correct in saying that?
Yeah, it's a broad well-being platform, but yes, that's
Well-being and wellness. Okay, okay. So where I see the connection where I'm headed is about food and nutrition.
right.
And so when we look at our nonprofit and indeed, you can grow food on a nonprofit basis. It's fantastic. a lot of food could be supplied. And when we mean nonprofit, what we really mean is that people are growing the food. It could be a food bank. Food banks employ a lot of people. Uh,
Yes.
they just don't add the profit margin
Yeah.
when they distribute, right? So, and of course that would greatly contribute to wellness because
Yeah.
food and nutrition is at the core. Um, and also another, I think, area of connection could be connection with families, because
Yes.
as I understand, you want to directly connect with families.
Yes.
Um, and our program is about enabling people to grow food, families in their backyard to actually grow
Yeah.
food. So the way and our commercial model might have some, bearing. In fact, of course, I'm always looking for collaboration. That's why
Yeah.
Rocky has this incredible network of people. So, just to put this out there, sort of thing. I
Yeah.
don't know if it goes anywhere, but um, when you're looking to build these communities of motivated people. So, and I believe that in families, when it comes to nutrition. I would say motivated mothers.
Hmm.
Oh, the women are always and very often most connected with food and nutrition. People are separated from nature. And although gardening is tremendously popular, it's the number one hobby for families. But
Yes.
today's environment makes gardening extremely difficult. We got heat waves, we've got, cold, sudden snaps, and all kinds of issues coming up. So we want to bring a 21st century technology to families that they can grow in their backyard. We call it a family food bank. And we believe you can grow the food for a family, a whole family, family of four or more, extended family even, from a very small space, which is a vertical garden in the backyard. And of course, that's our tech, that's our product called Pyropod. And we're offering that. We'd like to offer it through nonprofit arms or
Okay.
agencies, and organizations like food banks. And if so, then you could structure it that the food bank has the capital to grow food locally because they have donors. Now, the donors usually just purchase food. They donate and the food bank purchases food. The money is gone and the food is consumed. What we
Yeah.
would like to see is a tryout. Just try it out. We say to a food bank, have a couple families that volunteer to grow the food locally in the community. Localization is very important. I'm way past my 60 seconds now, so that's just a
Great.
little more generally speaking, right? So we let's say we enlist 100 families in a neighborhood,
Yeah.
in a food desert. And you've got a lot of middle class, low middle class, right? Lower middle class communities suffering food scarcity, food, nutritional food desert, situations, right? Even though they own a home and have a backyard. So they do have some capital. They do have some things where they have their time and they have their education. So if we can supply them this tremendous advancement to create a food abundance, and the food bank could say, okay, you can grow $20,000 worth of food in your backyard. We'll give you the capital. We have a network of entrepreneurial. So this is a secondary network as well, the supply side. Now, the food bank could create a hub of, again, volunteer or sometimes volunteer or paid people that would handle the technology, right? Would deliver the product. And again, they can do it nonprofit if that's their purpose. So my tech is open source. So I'm not really concerned about how, what is the business model? It could be a nonprofit model, it could be a for-profit model. And each one has its own niche, right? It works,
Yeah.
right, in different ways. So yeah, so that would be the idea of food banks engage with food banks. What if it was a bigger picture thing, like you were mentioned, insurers and health organizations,
Yeah.
and they might take a stake with food banks to increase the wellness of their insured membership, right?
Relation. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and they're saying, well, where do we mobilize our capital? I mean, insurance agencies, insurance organizations have some of the largest pools of capital, and they're always interested
Yeah,
in, and also, what about the reinsurance? How about we could make communities resilient after
yeah,
emergencies, right?
Yeah,
Would have,
Richard,
yeah.
I keep thinking, and I've heard you talk before, I keep thinking that you have a solution that's looking for a problem. And
Oh, Rocky,
well,
hunger.
and here we have
One,
Derek that's got
I,
a addressing problems that I think there may be a real good match. Can you say more? What specifically would address it for somebody like Derek, who's in the technology environment, focusing with businesses, focusing with disaster areas? How does this pod fit into that, Richard?
well, we have a failing food system, and I disagree that there's not a demand. Hungry people are demanding, and soon, we could have, even in the US, we could have famine if enough things. And you're just mentioning Katrina. I mean, we don't comprehend in many ways in North America what it can mean to have the wheels fall off. For example, there's millions of preppers out there who
yeah,
believe the wheels will fall off, right? And then there's other organizations that say, oh no, business as usual, things won't change, we'll be okay. Well, actually, somewhere in between, right, is the real truth here. And what we should be is prepared. So the thing is that the food system is totally unprepared. We saw it in the pandemic. If you go to your grocery store and you find that the aisles are empty, what do you do? What do you do, Rocky? Quarter of families in the US are suffering from food scarcity, food security, what they call. They're going to food banks right now. They're going to food banks. And in the pandemic, a lot of the people in your community or nearby who consider themselves to be prosperous also had a real crisis. Okay,
mm,
because when you disconnect the production, so I'm talking primary production and getting that located in the community with technology that we can do right now. It's not hypothetical stuff.
Yeah,
And
Richard, let me steer you to what Derek is addressing because Derek has identified a very real situation and is looking to scale that up. They're focusing with partnerships with SHRM, with companies, and also those people that do need that. And I'll go along that maybe a quarter of the population in the US is in the food desert. Can you, what is what you have addressed what Derek is looking for?
well, it's a combination of things, of course. We mobilize time.
yeah,
Families do have time. So they have that resource. We mobilize education. We give people an actual, very productive primary production. We can grow in our pods, the Pyre Pod, $20,000 in value of food.
yeah,
And the pod costs $12,500. We would like to see an investment of 25,000 for each unit. Now, so the deal would be then is that the family would enter into a contract, and we would like to do this through Web3 and NFT type of investment structure. So each Pyropod would be an NFT, and that would be retained in ownership by the entity that delivers the pod. The family enters into a contract. They get a free pod. It's finance for them. As I just said, this is for the poor middle class,
yeah,
uh, middle down. And so they will lack in capital, but they spend every year, they spend 15, 16,000 on their food, just groceries, not eating out and stuff, just groceries.
right.
So what we
Richard,
say
how
is,
did you get into I'm tracking with you. I'm curious. How did
okay,
you get into this venture? What was
I'm, a, I'm an
how
inventor.
did you get into
Yeah,
this?
I didn't really say much about my story, actually. I'm an inventor. I've been at this for all my life, but in a serious way for 40 years. I'm 73. So I'm in Canada. In the 80s, I raised about 30 million. I've been in a very high-tech sectors. I worked with NASA space program in the early 90s. I've been in Norway. We've got our most adoption. This tech, I expected it to be adopted by the food system, by the industrial commercial growers. But
Yeah,
the food system is very reluctant, okay, very resistant to the profit model that they have, which is food costs a lot. What
yeah,
we're going to do is produce food almost free of cost,
right,
except of course labor of the
right.
family, the people growing the food. So anyway, the commercial model is that we can get these projects funded for families. Are families reliable? Families are extremely reliable. We don't need
Yeah,
to launch this with a whole bunch. We would launch with, say, 10 trial, alpha projects, each one funded 25,000. So that's 250,000. That's a trial startup. And that's also proof of concept stage. What we want to see is, do the families grow the food?
and you already manufactured the pods? Like
Oh
these are
yeah,
not
yeah. We're in
conceptually.
production. I've been manufacturing my technology for 40 years, right from the very outset. So why it's so important is you can think of it as a greenhouse, and most people think, okay, everyone does that, and or you think it's container growing or some, no, this is quite unique. I have 6 patents, and
Okay.
the technology is extremely unique. In fact, there's no working systems in the USA. There are some in Europe. There's a couple in Canada. We're looking to launch in the USA. We received a $21,000 grant from University of Illinois, which is going forward with our very first alpha project of Pyropod
Yeah,
in Chicago. And it's a wonderful team in Chicago, in a food desert, in a food desert community, a Black community in Chicago,
yeah.
very motivated people, very strong, and they're going to do a great, you know, they're gonna do well. Concurrently, though, we're launching about 6 or 7 sites. That's before this funding. What I'm saying is I'm looking for the funding for families because that's
Yeah.
the true test of adoption, right? Is this is for the backyard, this is for the families. What if we funded 10 families with 25,000 will deliver the product? Okay, that's my guarantee. $25,000 does it. And they're growing $20,000 worth of food per year.
Yeah.
Now, they get the product for free, but they enter into a contract to grow. Now, they grow for themselves and for the food bank, the community. They give their surplus. So, and what is the surplus? It's half the food they're growing. So if they're reasonably good, if they apply themselves reasonably well, they'll get $10,000 worth of food.
Yeah.
It's a fantastic return on their effort. But the food bank gets $10,000 worth of food as
Yeah.
well. So what if we have 100 families adopting in a single community? Well, you've got food resilience because this food is local. This food is guaranteed. It's like off grid, right? You cannot interrupt it. Even you have a hurricane, okay? Even you have a hurricane. Rocky. These people, their food will not be interrupted. They'll not lose their
Well,
crop.
doesn't a hurricane blow the roof off the power pod? I
No,
mean,
no, no. Many buildings survive hurricanes, even force five hurricanes. There's reasons why buildings go down in hurricanes, and there's reasons why buildings burn. And by the way, we can do this and our pods won't burn, period. You can have
let's
one
steer
of these.
this to Derek because I think there's a great partnership evolving here if we get a better understanding of both sides. Derek, what's your thoughts on this? Because you're in the front line, you know people that are
Yeah.
displaced or struggling. If they were able to grow their own food, they would get by for a certain amount of time. And after a year, I think the food would be free because they just grow or almost free
Almost
and they
free.
contribute to the food bank. So, Derek, what's your thoughts on this? What do we
So
have
my
here that you
thoughts on
might
this are
step in?
twofold. So one, there could be a possibility in collaborating with my venture with Life Guides. I don't think that's the the pathway, just to be clear, because just we're in a different focus area in terms of what we're trying to do with broad mental health and emotional health. However, what I will say is it is interesting to me personally,
Mhm.
that I find the area of food and provision of safety and security and shelter and all these different human needs of relevance. And I've worked with a number of other organizations that are doing related work, not necessarily food work, but they're working in communities that you were describing, that are in the food deserts or that are lacking homes or infrastructure and raising money to build and have a community element. So I'm thinking of other connections that might be of use to this. I like your mission. I like what you're doing. But I don't think it's a direct collaboration with my venture, but I could see where I understand why you're passionate about it, and I could see where there would be potential appetite to try this, even from organizations I work with that do like community gardens, right?
Yes,
And the
yes, that's right.
concept of how that would apply, right? And so same kind of concept if you're tapping into the community garden or the food bank and then teaching these families how to grow their own food and have a
Mm.
shared supply element of it. I think it's admirable. So that's my sense of it, Rocky, to answer your
Yeah,
question.
we would love to work with community garden. We would work with the community, all kind of whatever organizations get turned on by this concept of local food security
Yeah.
and creating health and wealth, right, in the
Yes.
community. Um, yeah, we'd love to be getting any introductions. You kick the idea around and we might
Yeah.
find another alpha, right? We're looking for the alpha pioneers of the
Yeah.
technology as well before we launch, a proper test.
Yeah.
Uh, and what you said, I give you one other area of feedback would be that this is a proven mental health plus is connecting with nature,
Yeah, for
growing
sure.
food, being in these environment, actually inside the pyropod itself as you work in that kind of environment. It's a very actually veterans, PTSD, all kind of other implications are
Yeah.